word to wise. Grass only greener when it's fertilized. Gave them truth in these songs, they prefer to lies. Destiny beautiful, adrift in her purple lies. You can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
Right. Composure. Okay, there you go. There's no composure here. There is no composure here. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen of the Blerd delegation, I have special guest in the building. Technically not in the building, technically in remote. So it's the Blerd Cave at another location. I am joined today by two writers who are working on a project that you guys are going to want to check out. We're going to talk about it a little bit here. These writers I got with me today are David Rucker and Berry Newkirk. So, and they're working on a project called Decimation Earth. And there's a subtitle in there too, actually. Agents of Anarchy. So, gentlemen, what's going on?
Well,
not much here, man.
So, gearing up for Kickstarter.
Yep. Getting that ready and getting it ready to go. We thank you for the opportunity to join you and talk to you about our book.
I'm glad to have you because for those I think we kind of joked about this before we jumped on proper that I am I have a Kickstarter addiction, so I try to stay away from Kickstarter except for like once a month, and I just go in and go hog wild. But no, I don't. In case my wife is watching. But no, you guys are putting this together, and now full disclosure, I've kind of seen a little bit of the fruits of both of your labor, and yeah, I kind of wanted to. First things first, before we get into the Kickstarter proper. I kind of want to talk to you gentlemen about what's the elevator pitch for Decimation Earth. If you could break it down to somebody just boom, what's the pitch there?
An ex-covert operator and a former super soldier is tasked to stop the return of Cthulhu.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Dude, yep. I like it. Yep. I'm already in.
Most people are when we mention Cthulhu.
Well, I mean, it's a very specific thing. It's like oh well, Cthulhu's all right, let's go.
Yeah.
It's a nice shorthand.
Now, more importantly, what was the inspiration? Obviously, Cthulhu's the inspiration. Cthulhu's there, but what got y'all on the path to this story?
So this has been a 20-year project of mine. The story's been in works for 20 years. Over the years, it's changed and evolved into what we have now. But the basic framework of the story is what I had in place when Berry came aboard. Mm-hmm. And as Berry and I were working through building out the characters and plotting out what each book was going to be about, I kept sitting there saying to myself, I don't want a traditional villain. I don't want a Lex Luthor type villain. I don't want a Dr. Doom type villain. I don't want a Thanos type or the kind of villains that you find in the normal big two.
Right.
I wanted these heroes to be challenged by something that they don't understand and they don't necessarily know they're going to be able to beat. Matter of fact, the cards might be stacked against them to the point where they may not win, period. Mm-hmm. It's not like the Avengers Endgame, where eventually, the good guys win. It's not necessarily that case.
As far as, because I guess this is just I'm about to show a little nerdiness here, so I apologize to the Blerd delegation, but being a huge fan of things like Eldritch horror, Arkham horror, this is kind of what immediately drew me in on what y'all are working on here, is that as anyone would know who plays Arkham horror or any of these games, they are hopeless. And you don't always win. And matter of fact, more often than not, you will likely lose. And as speaking as a person who has played both Arkham and Eldritch Horror, and between both games and multiple editions, has only won maybe 2 games. I immediately thought of that was kind of the thing I thought about was the hopelessness of a group of people or any number of people trying to stop an elder god from just coming down and running roughshod all over the planet. So that was kind of what immediately drew me in. Like that was just like an immediate go for me. Now another thing I want to talk about is real quick before we jump into more of the juicy details is the characters. The characters that y'all have put together are not your traditional cookie cutter. You're saying like you would no traditional cookie cutter villain, but I think the main characters also kind of fit that mold where like they're not your traditional Marvel comics, DC comics, whatever your big two style of character. So what got y'all on that path? What was that process all like?
And Barry, jump in here with me as well, because you had some input on these characters as well.
Yeah.
For our main characters, we decided that we were going to forgo the tights and the capes and the bright colors. Because we created this world that was gritty, that was dirty, that was just dark. And we wanted our heroes, even though some of them have superpowers or some of them are above the average physical human being, we wanted them to be sort of down to earth and you could sympathize with them and either get behind them or root against them based on their personality and how they interact in that world.
Yeah. Also, when I came on, the way that Dave described it to me is he talked about retrofuturism and steampunk. And so that to me also colors a lot of the technology and the environment around them, coloring their views of the world and what they're dealing with. Also, because it takes place 300 years in the future after a cataclysmic event, there's a lot of history there that we can delve into that would also color people's viewpoints and what they want. My background originally has been in acting and then writing. And so for me, I'm always thinking in terms of character of what is the drive behind this person and what can we do to make them more interesting. So it's not just, oh, I'm getting from point A to point B, but now I'm also dealing with this thing from my past or this other desire that's contrary to the main thrust of the story itself. Okay.
Which I think that's actually a very unique I think that's a very unique perspective because I feel like I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I'm sure someone will who is watching this will probably correct me as they are wanted to do. But I feel like that is a place that not a lot of writers come from. It's usually it's always usually kind of start one way. I always feel like if you are an actor, you probably start out as an actor and do acting for a long time, and then you move on to something else. Whereas you're kind of coming at it from both angles, and but bringing that extra oomph, because sometimes I feel like as a writer you are going to be in tune with the characters that you are creating, the characters that you're kind of telling the narrative for. But I feel like having that background really kind of pushes how you can, I guess, maybe better put yourself in that position to say, okay, well, what is this character going to do right now? What is this character feeling right now? Like how are they going to respond to this thing happening?
Well, and I think the thing is that anytime you're writing something, the characters will always surprise you because they start taking on a life of their own. Because we're getting ready to launch book 1, but we've written 5 books at this point, I think. Oh, wow. Is that right, Dave?
Yeah, 5.
And so as we've been writing, different characters always try to take over. And so then I'm constantly having to tack back and be like, great, that's fine that they want to go this route, but it's not about them.
Right.
And let's focus here instead. And so it is that thing, though, that by having that background as an actor and finding all those like little nuances and private moments that a character might have, it just, I think, enriches the story that we wanted to tell in of itself.
And with his background and how we're working is mesh with my background, which is military, and I have a master's degree in national security studies focusing on terrorism. We've kind of married that together to create this world, and I've used my experiences and my education to craft characters in such a way that are more realistic in the way they're thinking and how they view the world. And I think that's very important because, one of our characters who you fall in love with is a perfect example of that. And, we've tested her out several times with different people, and everybody just seems to feel that she's the strongest character. And as Barry said, we've had to take a step back, and he's like, hey, this isn't our main character. What are you doing? It's like she keeps talking to me. She keeps like kicking in the door and coming in,
Yeah.
And, so it is very interesting that I know it's crazy. Yeah. It is totally crazy, and I'll let you introduce the crowd to the character after I get done speaking here, because, when you and I were corresponding, you were like, oh man, she's just like off the hook.
Oh, no. She quickly became, I would say quickly became my favorite of of everybody. and that says something, because there are a lot of great characters. There are a lot of great characters in this, but like it was just like when I was reading the script for it, I was just like, it's like, man, dude, I'm feeling this. Like, well, and you kind of like how you were saying, like, she commands more of the panel time, more of the lion's share of the story, and it's almost like she kind of pulls that kind of Captain Phillips on you. She hits you.
Yes.
Like, no. I'm the main character now.
Yes. Which is great as we look back at the scheme of things as we move forward. It's a great foil for our hero. Right. And the hero and her have such a great backstory that we'll be exploring. And it kind of explains, I think, for us, and the feeling I'm getting is I think people are going to root more for that character than they are going to root for the hero. Okay. And then towards the end of the book, I think that's going to change.
Oh, look, it's the gauntlet has been laid down. Is basically what you're saying. What you're saying is that she is. Do we want to use the term hijacked? Like, is she?
In some places, yes.
Yeah. Is she hijacking the hearts and minds of the gentle readers?
You already fallen in love with her,
right?
Straight up.
Well, it's like, and I think what you sent me, I think was that. I mean, that was was it the first two?
Yeah, the first two books.
Yeah, the first two books.
Well, actually, we sent you the first 4 books because when we wrote this,
I
wrote. So Barry and I, when we were writing this, I wrote 60-page scripts, and so our artist Sean Aline came to me. He goes, you could break that up, right? I was like, oh, because I think for him, he's looking at it. Man, it's 60 pages worth of panels, man. It's gonna take us forever to get this done.
He's like, dude, you could be doing way. You're doing a lot here.
Yeah, I know. So when we sent you those scripts, you got a snapshot of the first 4 books, because this is going to be a 7 to 12 book run. Depending on how we play it out. With the option, depending on how it's received by the audience, to come back with another arc.
Okay.
Or do spin-offs.
Oh, wow. So I mean, so yeah, like so it's like basically the way y'all have set it up. I mean, this isn't just, cause I know that's kind of the thing that I think kind of tends to happen a lot of times with I won't say every Kickstarter, but like always kind of feel like, it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, they did so and so, book 1, book 2, whatever, and it's like, oh, okay, that's it, that was all, that was everything. It's like, no, there's actually there's more story, and more potential that's out there. Like, so when people get, because it's one of those things I always kind of feel like, it's probably the one thing, the one area where I'm always like, oh man, I wish there was more. It's like, no, there's more. We're not done with you yet. We're not done with you yet.
No. And the beautiful thing about the Cthulhu mythos and the Lovecraftian cosmic horror, there is such a rich depth of material to work with and to create with. We can do, this world is wide open for us to create and build with. And each of these characters, I think, as the story progresses, could stand alone on their own and do their own things.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I think also some of them keep showing themselves to us of like, here's my story and the story that I want to tell.
Right.
And like it's interesting because like in one of the later books, one of the characters that Dave threw at me, I was like, what's this person's point? Like, I have no idea. Like, why do we even have this storyline? And then again, like sitting with it over time, it's like, oh, this is where it can go. And then we've created additional sort of plot points of where they are going and their arc, which just opens up the world even more. That again, like as you follow the story, they'll tell you where they want to go, and it opens up sort of like another facet of what this world and this universe can be. Which is just, like, as a creator, super fun to watch.
Yeah, it is. It's like, imagine if you had this in a video game, it'd be like an open world video game where you could just go anywhere, do anything you want. And if the character did this would cause this to go that way, the story arc to go this way. And then, as Barry said, this is just an amazing world as it grows. I mean, we're finding things out as we write this story, that paths are being opened that we didn't even think about even plugging into the story. And then we're like, Barry will sit back and say, oh, wait a minute. If the character does this, then we can do this.
Right.
Because, and then, of course, then Barry sometimes comes back and says, what are you doing? I mean, you're kind of going off the path here. And as he said, I'm like, well, this character keeps pounding me over the head trying to escape, and
so much of it's also just figuring out what not to include.
Kind of like the pacing.
Yeah. Because a number of times, like, Dave has so many ideas and such a collection of different thoughts, and I read this thing and here's this other idea from my past and blah 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 that we can incorporate, and it's always that thing of great, but now pull it back or rein it in. So it's so clear of what the story and the thrust is, and so it's not overwhelming or confusing the story we want to tell on the whole as well. Yeah.
Right. Now, I guess should we go ahead and pull the I mean, at this point I probably have already shown her off more than a couple of times, most likely. But one of the key characters we were talking about was Paris, who just kind of, I don't know, just like once again, just kind of takes everything off, kind of runs off with I would say most of the show, in a lot of respects. Now, were there any other, like, aside from her, were there any other characters that, were there any other characters that kind of tried to jump ahead, or was it like kind of like a constant back and forth, like kind of a fight amongst characters, like, saying, hey, no, I'm amazing too, let me get some let me get some top billing, here, or was it just kind of or was she always kind of one of the front runners, And what other, like, and more importantly, what other characters kind of do y'all kind of gravitate towards? Her not included.
Dave, you want to take it away?
Yeah, I'm gonna say, for me, and I think Barry as well, Tommy,
Mm-hmm.
one of the other characters who's named after my wife's maternal grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
and is modeled after my wife.
Mm-hmm.
We wrote her into the later portion of the book, and as we progressed on with other books, she started to take a stand and come out to the forefront. And I think that's because one of the things I wanted to do with this story is that I wanted to give a strong female characters to go with the strong male characters. And I wanted them to be in a way, not like your traditional female heroines, but I wanted them to be more down to earth and more resourceful and gritty in how they deal with things. They can get down in the dirt and play just as well as a man can.
Right.
And so I would say Tommy. And Thunder Beast is another one, because when Sean originally, when I was talking about Thunder Beast with Sean, about the character designs for him, he went back and drew it and brought it forward, and I was like, oh, damn. Well, and I said to Sean Reform, I was like, I guess I can't kill them all. And he was like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, I was gonna, my original plans was to kill this character off, but you did the design so well that he's like, no, you're not killing me. You know, I'm sticking around. So that forced me, and that's another thing. When you work with an artist such as talented as Sean Aline, and you give him something with the script or what your idea of the character design is, he will go and take it and do magic with it, and then come back and you're like, oh, okay, we need to rethink this. And I think for Barry and I, we've just developed that relation with Sean where we could give him maybe 3 or 4 words about what we want in the scene. We talk it through, and he'll come back with something that is exactly on or even better than what we envisioned. Yeah.
And for me, like Dave, Tommy was the one character that when he originally wrote, oh, and then there's this cop, that I was just like, oh, okay, like can we do more with it? And then to me, what made me gravitate towards her is in a world of superheroes where they've been at the top of the pecking order, and now there's this new pecking order with the great old ones and the Cthulhu mythos. What are now the people at the bottom, which are now humans? What is their journey and their trajectory? And then how do you rationalize and wrap your head around this whole other plane of existence that you didn't even know was there? And that was, to me, the really interesting aspect. And yeah, as the Thunder Beast, he's very interesting too, because when we originally wrote, I was like, oh, and then he just gets shot in the chest, and it was this super anticlimactic thing that we wrote, and I was like, I kind of like it, because it's like, here's this hulking guy, and then he's just gone. That it's sort of the Game of Thrones approach, and Dave's like, you can't do that. Like, you can't. That's not a thing we can do anymore. I'm like, oh, okay, well, let's like change it. And after seeing the artwork, I was like, yeah, no, he is kind of amazing. And so then sitting with the character of where he can go and what about his story like attracts us. I'm really glad we didn't ultimately kill him off. But it's these like creative conversations that Dave and I have that really like just keep informing the world, which I always find just super interesting. Yeah, and then Sean's work, like just to sort of parrot what Dave said, he just keeps coming back with more and more stuff that I'd say is consistently better than we even envisioned it, because it's just his visual style is so accurate. He has a way of telling the story through visuals that just emphasizes all these different aspects of the character and the world that we couldn't even imagine. And it's just amazing to constantly see. Also, just when it's in your head and then you get pages back, it's like, oh, this is real. And that's always just Like in a weird way, like a pat on the back for us of like, oh, we did something really cool. With Sean's amazing help, but it's just great.
And you see, and one of the most prolific characters that you really see his talent in is the Star Spawn.
Right.
Yeah, the Star Spawn, and then there's the scene in the book where you have the Star Spawn and the big bad coming through a portal, and the level of detail that Sean put in there is just amazing. Just alone, I would just want that as a print framed on my wall. You know.
Speaking of, like, I know we were gonna have Sean Aline, whose name I had to make sure I got correct, because I will jack up a name in a heartbeat. So that was not a first take. I don't even think that I just knew, but I had to be coached. But Sean was able to join in with us today, but I did want to ask a question, like, and really this is I guess kind of blanket for everybody, because we have these creative minds. We have both you, David and Barry, as like the narrative force behind Decimation Earth, and then we have Sean, coming in as the artistic, the I guess the visual artist, kind of behind it. How did all of this come together? Like, how did you three like find each other and just be like, hey, we're doing this thing. We're going all in.
So, as I said, I conceived this over 20 years ago. And when I originally started, there was three other individuals on this project with me, and then they suddenly disappeared. And then this got pushed underneath a chair somewhere, and then my wife found it, and she's like, "What's this?" And I was like, "Oh, it's a comic book I was writing, but I haven't found the artist or whatever." Well, she convinced me to get back into it, and I think as I was working on it and trying to hammer it out, I took my twin boys, I think at the time they were like 9 or 10, to the Heroes Con here in Charlotte. Okay. And Sean Aline was there for Pyroglyphic Studios, which is his label. And him and I started talking, and we hit it off, and I saw his artwork. And I felt it in my back of my mind. I was like, man, if I ever get in a position to where I can get him involved, I want him. And so one of my close friends came aboard and helped me get into a position where I could, get an artist involved in the project. And we were looking for artists. We went through several artists, and none of us were satisfied with those artists. So I said, I really want Sean. So I gave Sean a call. Sean said he was in. After I made the pitch, I think for him it was all about the steampunk, the Cthulhu, and everything. He's like, I'm down, I'm in. What do I got to do? What do you need? And Barry, I'll let Barry explain how he got involved. But once again, my wife played a pivotal role in hooking us up into this project.
So I had a survival job at the Lego store in North Carolina. For a few years, and Dave, Stephanie, and then his two kids came in one day, and Stephanie and I just were talking about all kinds of different things, and she mentioned Dave writing this graphic novel, and I was like, oh, I've written this animated series, and this, that, the other, and we were just talking back and forth, and then she was like, I need you to meet my husband. So we got to talking, and he was like, here's my email, hit me up. And we went out for coffee, and he was like, hey, I've written this script, can you take a look at it and give me some notes? And I said, sure. And he sent it to me. And I read the whole thing, but I gave heavy notes for the first 17 pages. Mm-hmm. I won't say ripping it apart, but suggesting ways to clean it up. Mm-hmm. And he was like, do you want to do this? That was really helpful. Do you want to join? And I was like, sure. It actually seems like a really fun project. And so we just sat and started mapping it out. And he had, again, so many different ideas. And I was like, great, but what is the thrust? And then I did sort of the, like, it's a writer thing of like colored note cards. Where you get like different. And so I was like, who are the different characters and different time periods, and let's colorize them. And then we put them all on his wall of like, here's the length of the book, and then these are different points that we could go. So therefore I sort of gave it the structure it needed. And then yeah, we've just been going back and forth, and it keeps changing even now.
Yeah, it does. It does. and we even use Joseph Campbell's model of the hero's journey. So where we have the note cards, above that we have a line of the cycle of the hero's journey from Joseph Campbell. And I believe George Lucas used the same model for when he was writing Star Wars.
Very, very much so.
Yeah, and so for us, we go down each. Okay, book one. This is status quo. Book two, the call for him to come out, and in each book fell under each of those sections. And as we worked through it, and we worked through the script, Barry would take the note cards, and he'd go through the note cards. Okay, did we get this plot point? Did we get this plot point? Did we get plot A, plot B, plot C, and plot D for book one? Okay, we're moving over to book two, and here's 5 other plots we got to cover in this book. So yeah. And the creative process of it, it's like listening to a song. You know, you start at a high note, then you drop to a low note, then you come back up, and then you have that long chorus, and then you shoot up.
Right.
And so there's certain beats to the story that we've written that when you read it, along with Sean's visual art, it draws you in. It really draws you in. And along the way, because we've had this project, we've had a whole host of other people come around this project. And we've kind of formed a team, not just myself, Barry, and I, but also Sean and Shaunaline. But we have other artists who've come aboard to do other work for us for like posters, covers, and a couple of them have asked, can I do the next book? Or can I do the cover for the next book? And, and it is awesome because these artists are talented. They're all in the industry. And some of them have worked in Hollywood. Others have worked for IDW, Xenoscape, or Creature Entertainment, or done work for Nike or Topps cards, or even done work for the Charlotte Hornets here in town.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. And I think we even have one individual who's a part of the group that has worked in Hollywood. Beth Wingard. He has worked in Hollywood in video and design. Mm-hmm. He even worked on the latest. He's worked on Spider-Man, the Infinity Wars, Endgame, Wolverine, and a couple other superhero movies that have recently come out. I think he was working at Tippett Studios, and I believe that was the founder was one of the person who did the special effects for Star Wars. And I met him. He did a cover of Your Girl, Paris, the one that looks like a James Bond cover with her pointing her weapon right at the reader.
Okay.
He did the cover. Yeah, he did that cover. And he's also a writer too. And so I met him here in Florence, South Carolina at a Comic-Con with Wally McNair, who's another artist who's involved in this, who's done work for IDW and Topps and the Charlotte Hornets. And he has his own label, Gorilla Bread, and has done several books. We met him at an event in Florence, as I said. And he was just getting into the world of indie comics. And we started corresponding back, and I was like, hey, check out my script. As soon as he read the script, he's like, what can I do? What can I draw? How can I get involved? And we're like, oh, wow, jump on. Same thing with Wally McNair. I mean, he saw the script. At first I met him at a local comic book shop here, Rebel Base Comics. And
it's just an amazing name for a comic book shop, by the way.
Yeah, it is. And I had ran into him there, and I was initially talking to him about mentoring one of my twin boys, who's a really talented artist. Mm-hmm. And so we got together and we started talking, and he looked at and somehow my script got into his hands, and he's like, oh, wow. He's like, and he's doing one of our covers. So, and then we have also John Dale Sneed, who has done some design. He's going to be doing some coloring for us in the next couple of books, but he's done work for IDW and Creature Entertainment and a couple other places. And so it's amazing how this project has drawn so many people to it. I mean, Barry, a talented actor, he's written plays, he's directed, and he's come aboard, and he's been a great help in my foil. He's been like my mirror, to say, like, if something happens in the story, he just sits back and looks at me and goes, "Why? Can you explain to me why this is happening? Because it doesn't make sense to me." Yeah. And he's like my younger brother, but at the same time, he's the one who will just stand there and just fight you tooth and nail for something when you're going off the rails.
He's keeping us all on track. he's keeping us on schedule.
He's definitely I do my best. It sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. Again, one of the things that's been great about writing this too is with the color coding. When we were writing some of the books, it made it very apparent that, this is the thrust of the story, but we haven't incorporated this character in the last 30 pages. Maybe we should go back and tweak it some too.
Right.
So it is a lot of that as well, that it's just the constant. Again, it's my point in all of this is making sure it's the best quality it can be, and that Dave's ideas shine the most they can without all the additional static or noise. And to me, the fact that it snowballed into such a thing where all these people are now jumping on board, there's kind of no better feeling that you've got something than when all these people are like, great, how can I help? Here's another variant. Here's this other thing for another tier of your Kickstarter. All of this stuff that we've now got. It's each day when we get more pages of art that's been completed or coloring that's been completed, it's this is a real thing. And that's just constantly such a high for me, frankly. And for me, it's so surreal because 20 years ago I started this project, and it was like a dream for me. I can remember sitting in my buddy's house back in Ohio, Eddie Choi, and just drawing these little characters for comic books. And I couldn't draw worth a lick, but I had a standard form for all my heroes. And so all the heroes looked the same. The only difference was they had different colors. That's how you could tell the difference between them. And in their uniforms, they all wore a helmet with visors and these cool flight suits, and you're like, oh, well, that one's blue, so he has the power of ice. That one's red, so he has the power of fire. And so as I grew and went through high school, I loved to write, but I wasn't that structurally good at it. I was one of those writers that would put everything down on paper, and then you hand it in to the English teacher. She's like, what is this? There's no periods. There's no commas. What are you doing here?
This is just 8 pages of story.
Yeah, this is 8 pages of story. Just run on. I remember the first time I did it was in high school. I was in a teacher's class. Her name was Mrs. Brewer. And I was a real fan. And I don't know if you ever heard of these books. They're Mac Brolin series. They were these dime novel. It was during the late 80s, early 90s, where everybody was all big into special forces, Chuck Norris came out with Delta Force, and then you had and then everybody heard about the SAS, and everybody's, oh, this is so cool.
I never read them, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, And so there was these series of books that I read. I just would go to the library every day. It was Mac Brolin, Able Team, Phoenix Force. I mean, there's such corny names, How many people are you going to meet on the street? Hey, my name's Mac Brolin. Really? Your name is Mac Brolin. I know your mom didn't give you that name.
Well, it's the whole. It reminds me of the old like the whole Parks and Rec bit. You know, Burt Macklin, FBI. You know, that's what it reminds. That's what it sounds like now. But like back in the late '70s, early '80s, even until like the '90s, I would say to some degree, that was like, oh, that guy must be a badass. It's like no, God no.
He has
Lord,
to be
no.
with a name like that.
I'm sure somebody picked on him as a kid.
Yeah. So I remember writing the paper, and it was like a spy action scene. You know, it was like, write any story you want. And I turned it in. I was so pumped. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be a writer. F.
Oh. Oh.
And I was like, you know, I was so heartbroken because it's like, you know, this is a great story. Well, you're missing words. Structurally doesn't make sense. Run-on sentences. Red all over the paper.
Oh, God.
So I was like, all right, okay. You know, and then I tried to do this big movie script. I remember in high school where I was getting all these people together and I was writing this movie for all these people to be in. And I had all the people lined up, but once again, I think because of that experience with the teacher, I just totally walked away from it because I was just like, it was just heartbreaking. And then I went on to college, and then I remember having my first English class in college, and I was like, okay, I'm going to give this another shot. I'm going to give it a try. I'm writing papers. I'm getting C's. My next door neighbor in the dorm room was getting hammered on Jack the night before a paper was due and writing it drunk and getting A+. So I'm sitting here like, what? I was like, I'm not cut out for this. So I just walked away from it, you know? And then I didn't pick it up again until after I got out of the Marine Corps. And I was trying to struggle to figure out what I wanted to do. So I started writing, you know? And so it just grew from there.
Well, I think it says something. All roads kept coming back to that, like that you kept coming back to it regardless of the, you know, the crap you took like early on, like you kept coming back to it.
Yeah, it just kept calling me back, and you know, I originally got out of the Marine Corps. I was going to join the Secret Service, and along the way, I ended up derailed in banking, and you know. And as that continued on, it kind of became cathartic for me to work on this. You know, when my wife got me back involved in it, it was more cathartic. And I didn't necessarily think I was going to pick it up. But she was sly the way she got this back in my hands. We had a next door neighbor that was an artist. And one day, we had become friends with him and his wife. Nate Lavoie is the gentleman's name. And she, I guess, whispered in his ear what I was doing. And I remember one time we were hanging out at Barnes and Nobles, and he goes, "Well, what's one of your hobbies, man?" I was like, I'm writing a comic book. And he's like, well, let me check it out. And then he hooked me up with an artist, and then that's how I got back into it. And that artist ended up dropping out. But I've been very fortunate to where we are right now with getting Sean, getting Barry, getting Biff, getting John Dale, and another artist, Bernie Cook, who's up and coming. As well as Danny Quick, who's doing our lettering, who has his own book called The Ace Blade out of Short Fuse Media. So it has been an awesome experience with all these people that are talented, that have worked in this industry in some way or form, to gather around, and we all support each other, and we're driving this book forward. I mean, when I first reached out to you as a beta reader for the script, I was like, I don't know if he's gonna like it or not, but you know, I've sent it out to like 4 or 5 people that are close friends and family, and of course they're like, "Oh, this is great, because you know they're never gonna want to tell you, hey, Dave, this sucks."
It's like, are you sure?
Yeah, you sure you like it? So I was like, you know, the Blerd Without Fear, Ernie, he seems like I'm going to reach out to him. So I hit you up. I DM'd you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I DM'd you on
Instagram.
Yeah. Now, disclaimer: this doesn't mean everybody can just hit Ernie up on Instagram.
Yeah, please don't.
I got lucky.
I will be the first to
lucky.
admit I'm not the for two reasons. One, I don't check my Instagram that often, and two, you can talk to me on Discord. I'll be there. You know, link in the description, most likely.
Yeah. But I hit you up, and you're like, right back. Yeah, man, I'll take a look at it. I was like, okay. And then I sent it over to you, and you came back. I love it. And we've been moving forward ever since.
Oh yeah. And matter of fact, and just so everyone kind of understands, like, because I feel like most people don't understand this. Comic book scripts are not what people think they are. Like, I've had people hand me stuff before, like, just out and about. Hey, check out the script I wrote. And it's not really a script. It's more just like a draft of everything that's going to happen. And I'm always like, oh, okay, that's cool. But, like, no, this was like a legitimate script. This was a legitimate, this was the type of script you read, like, if you were reading for something like where there was like a movie, TV show or something like that. So like when I sat there really, I was reading everything. I was reading like the I guess like the production text, like the stuff like the notes for the for Sean, so on and so forth. And like I was seeing like and I was able, like, even with all that, I was able to kind of put all the stuff together in my head and just kind of like, okay, cool, I can see where this is going. And I really enjoyed it. And it also, and I will also say, what y'all did for me, whether you realize or not, is you made me realize, like, oh wait, I am doing this all the way wrong. I was like, this is what I need to be doing. So like it actually kind of helped me with with some ideas that I had. And so like I said, just the whole experience, both getting to see the story, kind of see kind of like a behind the scenes of the creation of a comic book, and seeing like the love and attention to detail that y'all are putting into this, and like how and how far y'all are pushing it. I just thought it was amazing. That said, I do want to go ahead and say I think it's time we finally tell the good people what they can expect from this on Kickstarter. Like what are the things that they can what are some of the details that we can give up?
Well, I'm gonna let Barry break that down for you.
All right.
Because Barry, I'm gonna let Barry break that down for you, because Barry has worked. We've gone very hard back and forth on this, and Barry's finally nailed it down. But a lot of people are going to be excited about what we're offering in the tiers. And Barry, I guess that's your cue.
Okay, so we're going to have, like, right now it stands at like 13 different tiers. So there's the simple like donation of like, give us money to help this. Awesome, thanks. Then you've got like a thank you tier. You've got a PDF version. You've got the physical book. You've got variant prints. We've got like four or five variant prints at this point.
Yeah, we'll have 5 variant prints. Well, actually 4 variant prints and a limited edition cover.
Yeah.
Which we're only going to be a limited edition cover. Yeah.
We've got like a pinup. There's also the ability to like where we will have your character's likeness or like your likeness be drawn into a future book, because we've got like 5 of them planned at least. We've got posters through Dave's side interest. We've got like a skateboard deck that we're also going to have certain things printed up for. Mm-hmm. You could get all the different covers, or we could even like write you as a character that would have a recurring role in future episodes as well. So like those are just sort of the series of different levels, and then as you go up, you'll get multiple different aspects of each of those things. But yeah, it goes from like $100 or $1 to $1,000 plus, depending upon how much you want to throw at us. But we've gotten all or almost all of the artwork done at this point in time. It's just a matter of going to the printer and then doing all the backer rewards as well.
Right, which for those who don't understand how this works, the printers is probably the most, I would probably dare say it's probably the most expensive and most stressful part of the entire comic book process. Like the writing, the art, all that stuff comes together. I don't want to say easy, but by comparison, relatively easier. When you start getting into the actual production of the comic, the printing, because you not only does it have to be printed, but you also have to make sure it's printed out correctly. So there's a lot of that. So I want people to understand this is no small task.
No, it's not. And I'm glad you brought that point up, Ernie, because when we first started looking at this, unfortunately, one of my close friends has backed us so far as on the art. Nick Wallach, I want to give him a shout out, and Involved Body Arts in Columbus, Ohio, who's helped produce this. It was, when it came down to it, we started looking about printing. And if you don't necessarily have an in with a printer or have a relationship with a printer, it can cost you a lot of money, and so, yeah, you're right. It's a nightmare because sometimes it's very daunting when you look at, I just want simply 250 books printed so I can sell them at a Comic-Con. And you look at the price point for 250 books and you're like, oh, wow, that's a little steep. But I'm saying to anybody who goes out there who wants to do this, don't necessarily let that dissuade you from pursuing this dream. But just be aware, as you said, it can be very intimidating or discouraging at times.
Like I said, it's a Herculean task. It's a Herculean task, and that's kind of like why one of the reasons why, like, when I read this and believed in it and was like, yeah, I want to see this become a thing. I want to see this become a thing. And I guess for me, I would definitely say, speaking as a person who is a huge fan of, a huge fan of comics, B, a huge fan of all things Cthulhu, and that kind of dark, kind of, I guess, very like, I would say almost like a desperate style of storytelling, like kind of showing off like a desperation for the protagonist, where everything isn't just like a gimme. The characters actually have to they have to experience hardship and things like that, being already kind of being bought in on that style of storytelling, those kind of concepts. I can definitely say that if you are yourself a fan, you owe it to yourself to check this out. You owe it to yourself to to take a look at this and just go in on it. And even if you are not, even if that, like, because I always hear people say something like, oh, well, it's not really my thing. Yeah, I still say check it out anyway, because there's lots of different layers in the storytelling. Like, I think David, you and I, we kind of rapped about this, kind of prior to this interview, where I was talking about how, like, there's a little bit of something for everybody. I've seen like there's like a lot of the boxes that are like my favorite boxes to check off on things I like in a story. I was finding them just throughout, the script, like, kind of, going back to one of my personal favorites, Paris, where she's talking with the politician, and they're having the kind of whole, like, the whole park bench deal. Like, I was like, that's something that, like, I could just as easily have seen in, like, a story like Ghost in the Shell, which is nothing like, what the overall vibe of this story is. So, like, it's just like there's different types of elements. Like, there's all these different things that, like, I was like, oh wow, dude, okay, so this is in here. Okay, all right, cool, that's awesome. Like, it's not just a one note style of storytelling. Like, there are lots of different layers to this. I tip. I don't have a hat on right now, but I would tip it if I had one. I will tip my imaginary hat to both of you for bringing, like, this really, like, kind of nuanced style of storytelling. It's something we don't really see in comics. You don't really see Cthulhu style storytelling. You don't really see this particular type of narrative in comics, especially not in mainstream comics. But I mean, it's even, I would say it's just as rare to see it even in indie comics. But that said, as a final word, I'll give both of you opportunity. I kind of did my little part in kind of pitching, but I want to give you two a chance to kind of give your Kickstarter pitches. Like, hey, you should check this out because pitches, if you will.
So yeah, if you like noir, if you like steampunk, if you like horror, I'm actually generally speaking anti-horror, and the fact that this actually got my attention, where I'm like, now I'm going to write it and I'm actually going to learn about it. I think in a way that brings a different twist on it. If you like weird retro-futuristic stuff, and we have some like different bizarre sort of pop references and stuff that we've thrown in as well, check it out. I think we've got some great different rewards planned for different people. We've got a great team on board, and this is only the beginning of where we're going.
Yeah, well said, Barry. And for me, my pitch is, if you like political thrillers, if you're a fan of 24, Mission Impossible, and noir, or anything gothic, you definitely need to check this book out. And one of the things also is, I felt that, if you're a big fan of strong heroes who are flawed, and who easily make mistakes and have to pick themselves up, check out this book. I mean, there's a lot of everything in there, visually, story-wise. If we could, we'd make a video game out of this, and everybody would have something to play with. So many diverse characters to play with and choose from, and so many levels to get through. So yeah, this is definitely something that I think has a little bit of everything for everybody.
Like I said, I agree with y'all 1,000%. I could see this as, I can see it as a video game. I can see it as a movie. I can see it as a TV show. I can see it as all sorts of different things, just because of the way it kind of lends itself to just a very kind of diverse style of storytelling. But that said, so remind me again, the day this is going down, it's gonna be by the time this video goes up, I'm hoping will be a few days even before that, or like right around that time. But it's gonna be October 31st.
We're launching it on
Halloween, which is a perfect day for something like this.
Yeah.
What time are we expecting to go live?
Ooh, good question.
That's a good question.
Probably by the time kids start going trick-or-treating.
Gotcha.
We try to
go live.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you I would look for us we'll be on the comic book circuit as well. pitching the book. Me on the East Coast, and I think Barry may be hitting the West Coast in some small circuit areas. I don't know what the timetable is, but we'll definitely be hitting it down here on the East Coast. As a matter of fact, I just recently came back from the Fayetteville Comic Con, where I was with Wally McNair. He was showing me the ropes, but we were pitching and showing our wares out there, and we got a great response from a lot of the people there. So yeah, it's exciting. If you want to get involved because it's got a little bit of everything from it. And plus, Ernie's going to be in the book. Blerd Without Fear, he's going to have a character in the book. So we haven't worked that out with him. But, hey. But he knows he's going to be in the book.
I'm going to be in the book, and if I must die, may it be at the hands of Paris. May it be in her hands and no one else's. But just real quick too, social what's the so that way people can kind of follow, because I follow y'all on Instagram, so I kind of have a little bit of I get to see little things here and there, because y'all are always posting stuff from the comic. And so if they want to find you on social media, how can they get a hold of you?
So we're on Twitter at Decimation, capital D, capital E Earth. That's Twitter. On Instagram, we are Decimation Earth IX. We're also on Facebook, and I believe that is Decimation Earth 2022-62.
Okay.
So those are the platforms you can reach us at. We're mostly, I think, if people come to Twitter, they can actually follow us as we go through this process.
Okay.
And we'll be posting videos. We'll be sending out shouts of our progress. And on Instagram, as you follow us on Instagram as well, we'll be posting up shots of the book, of the characters, us interacting and how we're doing this to get this process up, which will feed into our Facebook page. So that's really how you can reach out to us. And also, if you want to email us, you can email us at blackdecember@gmail.com if you have any questions or anything like that. And those are the main places we're on social media.
Okay. And then I guess once again I want to say thank you. Thank you for kind of getting me in on the ground floor, and this is kind of letting me see everything that that y'all are putting together. Kind of getting to kind of see that first look, that kind of behind the scenes look, and also thank you for having me in the comic.
I would just like to make one correction to the Facebook. It is Decimation Earth 2263. I was one digit off.
See there. These are things. Hey, look, I can't say anything because I would have doubled down. I'm like, no, it's two. It's two. It's always
They'll
been
just
two.
put in the captions, right, of the YouTube thing, so that we'll be clear if we're saying the wrong thing.
Right. Exactly. But I just once again, I just want to thank y'all again just for sitting down, talking with me about this. And like I said, just just this whole experience has opened my eyes to a whole side of the comic book business that I kind of knew existed, but I never knew exactly to what extent. As far as the creation, the production, what it takes to make these things happen, how these projects can come together, and for everyone else, thank you all for watching, and hopefully we will be seeing you at the Kickstarter when it goes live on Halloween. So make sure you get in there, make sure you help support these wonderful people who are making this wonderful project, Decimation Earth. And hopefully I'll get to count you in amongst myself as being in this book. Maybe get some of y'all come in, also get in on some of these books. That's something to think about. These are all things you should be thinking about. But that said, I'm Ernie, Blerd Without Fear. David Rucker, Berry Newkirk, thank y'all so much for being with me on this one. And
thank you.
Anytime. And I guess we will see y'all on Halloween.
right.
All right. See you then. Thank you.
So hey, you made it to the end of the video. Awesome for you. If you enjoyed this video, and if you made it this far, I don't see how you didn't, do me a favor. Hulk smash that like button. And if you want to see more awesome videos like this one, make sure you click subscribe so you can become one of Earth's mightiest subscribers. And tap that bell so you know when I post up. Also, feel free to go check out my Patreon, where if you chuck in $1, you can get early access to most of my videos up to a week early. And if you have time, make sure you swing by nerd901.com, where you can find more of my content as well as other amazing stuff. Anyways, until next time, I love you 3000 plus ultra!